Hello everyone, and today we're going to be taking these old chip rusted wheels and restoring them back to look like new again, just with a handful of easy steps. So let's get started. So for our first step, let's go and loosen up all the lug nuts for all four wheels. Now this is going to require a 21mm socket and a breaker bar for my vehicle. Now yours may be different, but it's going to be the same process. And now we're ready to lift up the vehicle, and this is going to require a service jack and jack stands. And since we're doing all four wheels at once, you're going to need 4 jack stands. Now for your vehicle, if you're wondering where the lifting points are, you can look in your service manual, or you can look in your owner's manual, which is usually in your glove compartment. And now that we have the wheels lifted off the ground, now we can remove all the lug nuts and wheels. Now these should be finger tight, but if not, go ahead and use your 21mm socket just to loosen them up all the way. And this is what it looked like after we jacked up the vehicle. Now I did leave the service jacks under there, just up against the frame. They're not taking the weight, but they are there as extra safety. And for our first stage of prep work, I'm going to remove the wheel weights. So grab your flathead screwdriver, put it between the wheel and the weight, give it a little thump, and start lifting upward. I'm going to grab one more flathead screwdriver, and there it goes. And I did these to all 4 wheels. So as I was removing the wheel weights, I took a good look on the inside of these wheels, and it looks like there's a fair amount of dust and rust on the inside. So we're going to have to start by cleaning all of this out using soapy water and scorcher pads. Now you can't have enough soapy water, so go ahead and douse it as much as you can. If you have a water hose nearby, even better. And these scorcher pads are great for breaking down all this dust and rust on the inside of this wheel, just to help the sanding process later on. Now I don't have a hose nearby, but I did grab a bucket of soapy water and a sponge, and this kind of helped expedite the cleaning process because I didn't have to keep spraying it down with my water bottle. And with the first wave of scrubbing complete, let's go ahead and grab some water, and that way we can rinse off all of this soapy, nasty water we have left behind. So as we're rinsing this off, this is looking actually pretty good. Now for those of you who have power tools at home, don't hesitate to use them. If you have any cleaning attachments, like this one, feel free to use it. It just makes your job quicker and easier, and it comes out looking better. And with all that intense cleaning that was done, I went ahead and moved the wheel in the sun just to get a better assessment of how it looks. So far it looks pretty good and it feels pretty smooth. That's a good sign. So let's go ahead and flip it over and work on the outside of the wheel. And we're going to repeat the same process. I'm going to grab my soapy water, go ahead and soak it down as much as I can. Then go ahead and grab my scorcher pad and just make sure there's no dirt or oil left behind. Now for these wheels, these are pretty rough. They have rust everywhere, so we're probably going to have to do a little bit more intense cleaning. So I went ahead and grabbed a wire wheel and go ahead and remove all the rust. So that means I'm going to have to take off all this paint that's on this wheel and go all the way down to the metal. Now for those of you at home who have wheels in better condition, you can skip this step, but since these wheels are pretty rough and there's so many rust chips on there, it has to go down to the metal. And now that we have all the rust removed, we can go ahead and start on the wet sanding process. Now for this one, since I used the wire wheel, I went ahead and started with 150 grit, then 300, and then 600 grit. Now for those of you who didn't use the wire wheel, you can go straight to 600 grit just to prep the surface. And with the long and tedious step complete, all we have to do now is rinse off our wheels. So I'm going to grab some water and just make sure I get all that soapy residue left behind. Now if you have a water hose, this will make your job 10 times easier. And I'll take my microfiber cloth and just dry everything off. And this is what it looked like after we completed all 4 wheels. Now as you can see, we had to take all 4 of these down to the metal because there was so much rust except where the center cap was. So that area we left the paint on the wheel, and we just used the wet sanding process to smooth out the transition between the bare metal and the paint. And now that we have the wheels prepped, let's go ahead and set up our paint area. So I have some drop cloths and some painter's tape. And I'm going to use the back of the truck here to set up a little miniaturized paint booth. And now that we have all the wheels in the paint area, let's go ahead and grab some IPA or rubbing alcohol. Crack that open, and then grab our microfiber cloth. We're going to douse that pretty good here. We're going to remove any soap or greasy residue left behind. We want to make sure this area is completely clean before painting it. That way the primer adheres to the wheel. And then we'll go ahead and grab some painter's tape and see if we can tape off this valve stem, or at least see if I can get my fingers in there. Almost there. There we go. And now I'll grab a razor blade just to go ahead and clean that right off, that little tail. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Very nice. Now let's go ahead and grab our tack cloth, and I'll crack that open. And we're going to do one last wipe down of the wheel. The whole idea is we want to make sure there's no dust or debris left behind. Sometimes these microfiber cloths can snag a little bit and maybe create a little debris. So we're going to make sure that's all gone. And for our last step before painting, all we have to do is prep the tire area. I'm going to use index cards. I'm going to press it in between the wheel and the tire. Now for some index cards are a little thicker and easier. Some are thinner and a little bit more floppier. Now, since it's windy outside, I went ahead and used painter's tape to hold these index cards down so they don't blow away. And take a look after we did all 4 wheels. Not too shabby. Now again, it's not the prettiest girl at the ball, but it's enough to where it keeps the paint off the tires because we don't want to douse these in silver paint. And now we get to begin the fun steps. Now we get to apply the primer. So I grabbed a can of engine primer, and this one's going to be gray just because of preference. And I'm going to shake for 2 minutes, do a little test spray. And I always use a cloth every now and then to wipe off the nozzle. This keeps it from clogging. And I switch hands, that's why I'm not in the way of the camera. And you want to do back and forth motions. And you want to make sure you spray before the part and continue to your after the part. And then once I do left and right, then I'm going to go up and down. I want to do basically a hatch pattern. And then for the rounded areas, make sure you contour to the wheel. And that way you have a nice even distribution of primer. Now, anytime I paint the front of the wheel, I'm also going to be doing the inside of the wheel. So I'm applying a coat of primer also on the inside as well as paint. So I might not show it on the camera, but I'm doing the same process. And after 10 minutes have passed, we're going to be applying the second coat using the same pattern, left and right and up and down. And then we're going to wait 10 more minutes and do a third and final coat. And after the third coat was applied, we went ahead and put a top to the paint booth for 30 minutes, just keep bugs and dust out. And now that the primer is dry, we can do a little bit of wet sanding. So I'm going to take my 600 grit sandpaper and some soapy water. I'm going to saturate the wheel as well as the sandpaper. And we're going to do a little bit of light sanding on the wheel. You do not want to press down too hard. You just want to get enough to smooth out that primer. And then we'll grab our water and go ahead and rinse off the wheels. We just want to wash away all that soapy water residue. And to accelerate the drying process, we'll just go ahead and wipe it down with a microfiber cloth. And again, let's grab our alcohol and a microfiber cloth. We want to make sure we saturate that cloth. And we're going to wipe down these wheels again, just to make sure there's no soap or dust left behind. And as always, right before you spray a wheel, let's go ahead and grab our tack cloth and do one last wipe down. Again, this is to remove all dust and to get any particles left from the microfiber cloth. And now we can grab our wheel paint. Now this is a silver one just to match the old wheels as well as the truck. So we're going to shake the can for 2 minutes. And then I'm going to do a quick test spray. Okay, it looks pretty good. And we're going to do a hatch pattern. We're going to start left to right. And again, before the part and after the part. And I have to hold down the index cards in a few spots because it's a little windy. And as I'm spraying, I'm doing nice light coats. And that one index card's starting to come up, so I'm just going to hold it right there. And there we go. Nice, even light coats. And then I'm going to go up and down as well. And with the first coat done, we're going to wait 10 minutes and apply our second coat. And the same thing, go left to right and up and down. This is a slightly heavier coat. And they're going to wait another 10 minutes and apply our third and final coat. And this one's going to be probably your heaviest coat out of the 3. And after 30 minutes have passed under the paint booth, I went and grabbed a new tack cloth and we're going to prep the surface one last time. We want to make sure there's no dust left behind from the previous spray job. And now we're on the last inning stretch. Let's go ahead and apply our clear coat. Same thing, we're going to shake the can for 2 minutes. After I pop the top off, eventually. There we go, wipe the nozzle. And then we're going to apply a nice thin coat to these wheels. The first coat's going to be a very, very light coat. So I'm going to start left to right, same as always. And then go up and down. And of course, we're going to let 10 minutes pass. And we're going to apply our second coat, wipe the nozzle, and this one's going to be a slightly thicker coat than your first one. And then again, we're going to let 10 minutes pass, and it's going to be a third and final coat, and this is going to be your heaviest coat. And while the clear coat is drying, let's go and remove the painter's tape as well as the index cards. And I'm going to try my best not to touch the clear coat. Now, as I'm tearing away these index cards, you can see a little bit of overspray on the wheels. Don't worry, I'll show you how to take that off later.
2 hours later.
So now that the clear coat is dry to the touch, I'm going to go ahead and very carefully install the wheels and lug nuts. The whole idea is I don't want to touch the wheel too much while the clear coat is curing. And now that we have all the wheels installed and all the lug nuts snug, I'm going to go ahead and raise the vehicle, remove our jack stands, and go ahead and lower it down. So now let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts. Now for this truck, it's supposed to be 98 foot-pounds. Yours is going to vary depending on your vehicle. And you want to create a star pattern anytime you tighten the lug nuts.
"24 hours later."
So after 24 hours, now our clear coat is fairly dry. Now let's go ahead and remove our overspray. So grab your alcohol, and this time we're going to pop this open and use a sponge. I'm going to go ahead and saturate the sponge pretty good. And I'm using a sponge just because it holds a lot of alcohol so it doesn't evaporate as quick. If you want to use a microfiber cloth, you can. And all you have to do is start scrubbing away all your overspray. It should come right off. And that looks like it came out pretty good. And I want to zoom out just a little bit. Grab our microfiber cloth just to dry it off. And this looks like it came out really good. So go ahead and repeat the same steps on the rest of your wheels if you have overspray. Well, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe.